The SEAL captain's voice cut through the heavy silence. "Any combat pilots here?" Dozens of eyes darted across the room, searching, waiting. The air was thick with expectation, yet no one moved. Then, almost imperceptibly, a chair scraped against the floor. A woman, quiet, slender, with hair pulled back in a simple knot, rose to her feet. For a moment, the room froze. Some smirked, others frowned, disbelief etched across their faces. A combat pilot? Her? But she stood there, unshaken, her gaze steady, her silence louder than any declaration. Her name was Captain Elena Ward. On the surface, she seemed unremarkable, no medals pinned to her chest that day, no uniform that screamed authority, only the quiet presence of someone who had seen more than she would ever say aloud. Many in that room didn't know her story. They didn't know the nights she spent alone in desert hangars, waiting for a call that could change everything. They didn't know about the smell of jet fuel mixed with blood, or the ringing in her ears from anti-aircraft fire that still hadn't faded. They didn't know that behind her calm eyes lived the memory of friends who never made it back. They only saw her now, a woman standing where men had chosen to remain seated. Elena Ward had not set out to break barriers. She set out to fly. She was 22 the first time she strapped into an F, divided by A-18. The cockpit smelled of heated metal and rubber, the oxygen mask pressing against her skin, the roar of the engines reverberating through her chest. In that moment, she felt alive, as though the sky itself had opened to her. But combat was no training exercise. She remembered the desert heat, searing her throat dry as she banked her jet over hostile terrain, missiles cutting through the air like white-hot spears. She remembered the night her wingman's voice cracked over the radio, then fell silent forever. She remembered the weight of returning alone. Elena carried that silence everywhere, the silence of names etched on marble, the silence of folded flags handed to trembling hands, the silence of comrades who had trusted her to lead them through fire. Now, in this crowded assembly hall, that silence once again hung over her. The SEAL captain had asked for combat pilots, not instructors, not simulators. But those who had flown into war itself. Murmurs rippled as she stood. A few men shifted uncomfortably, some hiding derisive smiles. No one spoke the words, but their expressions whispered them clearly enough. She doesn't belong. She's only here to be noticed. She's not one of us. Yet, she said nothing. She simply stood, hands at her sides, her spine straight as steel. The captain's eyes narrowed. He studied her as if weighing not her body, but her soul. Around them, silence thickened into tension. Every second felt like a blade pressed against skin. One man in the crowd chuckled under his breath. Another muttered, "This ought to be good." Still others turned away, unwilling to challenge the injustice openly, but unwilling to defend her either. Complicity hung heavier than the doubt. Elena did not react. She had been laughed at before in briefing rooms, in mess halls, in the subtle ways people dismissed her presence. But she had also seen those same men look at her with raw gratitude when she brought them home alive. Her silence was not weakness. It was memory. It was respect for those who no longer had the chance to stand. And then, quietly, she reached into her pocket. Her fingers brushed a small, worn patch of fabric, her squadron insignia, its edges frayed from sand and time. She held it gently, as if grounding herself in the ghosts of the past. The SEAL captain took a step closer. His voice, when he spoke again, was sharper, louder. "Do you understand what I'm asking? Combat pilots. The kind who've flown under fire. This isn't a classroom. This isn't theory." Elena met his gaze. And finally, she spoke, her voice low but unwavering. I flew over Kandahar. I lost my wingman over Fallujah. I brought my crew home from an ambush in Helmand when we were outnumbered 3-1. The room stilled. The smirks vanished. One by one, eyes shifted away from her, shame rippling through those who had doubted. The silence that followed was no longer dismissive, it was reverent. And then the captain nodded once, almost imperceptibly. It was the kind of nod soldiers give only when they recognize one of their own. The SEAL captain turned back to the crowd. His voice carried the weight of finality. If there are no other combat pilots here, then you'll follow her. Dozens of hardened men, Marines, soldiers, sailors shifted in their seats. One by one, they stood, not to challenge her, but to honor her. Boots scraped against the floor as the room rose, not in mockery, but in silent respect. No one laughed now, no one questioned. They stood because they had witnessed something undeniable, a quiet strength forged in fire, a dignity that no doubt could diminish. The captain gave her the floor, and as Elena stood there, the air felt different, charged not with dismissal, but with reverence. In the end, she never asked for respect. She never demanded acknowledgement. She simply lived by the truth of her sacrifice. And that is why her silence shook the room louder than any speech could have. Because real heroes rarely announce themselves. They rise quietly, when called, carrying the weight of battles most will never understand. And so the question is left for us. How many silent heroes walk among us every day unseen, unrecognized, underestimated until the moment they choose to rise? If this story moved you, share your thoughts below. Tell us where you're watching from. And if you believe in honoring those who carry silent strength, subscribe for more stories that remember the unseen battles and the heroes who fight them.